$4,200 a month, Dad. That's the market rate for a room in Yaletown. Consider it your contribution. Jessica's voice was sharp, cutting through the Sunday morning quiet like a blade. She stood in the doorway of what had been my room for the past 18 months, arms crossed, that expression she wore when closing a deal. I looked up from the book I'd been reading, one of Linda's old favorites that I'd been working through since she passed. My son David sat on the couch behind Jessica, staring at his phone, jaw tight. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Your contribution, I repeated slowly. The words tasted bitter. Yes. Jessica stepped into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood. David and I are tired of subsidizing your retirement. You're perfectly healthy. You could get a job, rent your own place. Instead, you're here, taking up space we could be using. Space you could be using. My home office, Jessica gestured broadly. I'm up for partner at Mackenzie Holloway this year. I need a professional workspace, not a guest room with your stuff everywhere. I see. I closed the book carefully, running my hand over the worn cover. Linda had written her name inside, decades ago, in her careful script. And David? What does David think? My son finally looked up, his face flushed. He opened his mouth, closed it. Jessica turned to him, eyebrows raised, waiting. Dad. David's voice was quiet. It's not personal. It's just, we're planning for our future. Jessica's career is taking off. We need the space, and the money would help with the mortgage. The mortgage on the condo I'd help them purchase with a $200,000 down payment. But I didn't say that. I'd learned long ago that money given in love shouldn't become ammunition later. How long do I have? I asked. End of the month. Jessica's tone softened slightly, probably at David's discomfort. That's 3 weeks. Plenty of time to find something affordable. Maybe one of those senior communities? I hear they're quite nice. A senior community. I stood up, gathering my book and reading glasses. Jessica stepped back, as if she thought I might argue, might make a scene. Instead, I smiled. All right, I said. I'll start packing. Really? Jessica blinked, clearly surprised. Just like that? Just like that. I moved past her, toward the door, paused. Thank you for letting me stay as long as I did. I appreciate it. I left them standing there, Jessica looking vaguely suspicious, David's relief palpable. That afternoon, I called Marcus. Mr. Chen. Marcus's voice was warm on the other end of the line. Good to hear from you. How's the family situation? Exactly as expected, I said, standing by the window and looking out over False Creek. I need you to come by Sunday morning, 2 weeks from now, 10 a.m. sharp. The Bents? The Bents. And where are we going, sir? Home, Marcus. We're going home. Over the next 2 weeks, I packed quietly. Jessica watched me with barely concealed satisfaction, already measuring the room for furniture. David helped carry boxes to my old Honda Civic, making awkward small talk about the weather, the Canucks, anything but what was really happening. Where are you going to live? He asked on the second Saturday, as I taped up a box of Linda's photographs. I've got a place lined up, I said. Don't worry about me. Dad, if you need help with first month's rent or anything, I don't. But thank you for offering. He lingered in the doorway. That same lost expression he'd had as a boy when he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I wanted to tell him then. Wanted to sit him down and explain everything, the truth he'd somehow never quite understood despite being there for pieces of it. But the time for that had passed. He'd made his choice. Now he'd learn the hard way, the way I'd learned most of my important lessons. Jessica came home late every night that week, barely acknowledging me. Once, I heard her on the phone with her mother. No, he's actually being reasonable about it. Quite civil, really. Yes, Mother, I know it sounds harsh, but David's too soft with him. Someone had to take charge. We can't carry him forever just because he's David's father. Carry me. The woman who'd grown up in Shaughnessy, who'd never worried about money a day in her life, thought she was carrying me. I finished packing Thursday evening. Everything fit into 8 boxes and 2 suitcases. 53 years in Canada, compressed into containers. I had already arranged for Linda's paintings, her jewelry, her collection of vintage cameras to be moved to climate-controlled storage. The truly valuable things, The things Jessica would never understand the worth of. Friday night, David tried one last time. Dad, are you sure about this? You don't have to leave. We could figure something out. Jessica was at a work dinner. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd taught David to play chess, where we'd watched hockey night in Canada, where Linda had held her book club meetings. Your wife wants the space, I said. I understand. You're building your life together. Parents shouldn't be in the way of that. You're not in the way. His voice cracked slightly. Things got complicated. They often do. I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You're a good man, David. Your mother would be proud of you. I wasn't sure that was true anymore, but he needed to hear it. Saturday, I did one last thing. I went to my safety deposit box at the Bank of Montreal on Burrard Street, where I'd kept certain documents since Linda died. I added one more, a letter, sealed in an envelope with David's name on it. Instructions for the bank manager were clear. Give it to my son in 3 months, not before. Sunday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of Vancouver winter day that makes you remember why people love this city despite the rain. I was dressed and waiting by 9:30, my boxes stacked by the door. David was making coffee in the kitchen. Jessica was in what would soon be her office, already planning the layout. I could hear her talking to someone on speakerphone about desk dimensions and filing cabinets. At exactly 10 a.m., I heard it. The low rumble of a powerful engine, then silence as it shut off outside the building. I walked to the window. The Mercedes S-Class sat at the curb, gleaming black in the morning sun. Marcus stood beside it, immaculate in his dark suit, checking his watch. David came out of the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. His eyes went to the Mercedes, then to me. Dad, whose car is that? Mine, I said simply. Well, the firm's. But I have use of it. The firm? I smiled, the same smile I'd given Jessica 2 weeks ago. It's a long story. Marcus will help with the boxes. I buzzed Marcus up. While we waited, Jessica emerged from her future office. Who's at the door? Then she saw the Mercedes through the window. Her expression shifted, confused, then annoyed. Dad, if you hired some expensive car service to make a point. The elevator chimed. Marcus stepped out, and I saw Jessica's face change again. Marcus didn't look like a hired driver. He looked like what he was. Executive protection, former RCMP, dressed by Harry Rosen. Mr. Chen, Marcus nodded to me, then to David and Jessica. Ma'am, sir, I'm here to collect Mr. Chen's belongings. I'll get the boxes, I said. But Marcus was already moving, efficient and professional. Jessica watched, her lawyer's mind clearly working, trying to piece together what was happening. David, meanwhile, stood frozen, his coffee forgotten. It took Marcus 3 trips. On the last one, as he carried my suitcases, I turned to David and Jessica. Thank you for letting me stay, I said. I hope the office turns out beautifully, Jessica. I'm sure you'll make partner. You're very driven. Dad, wait. David finally found his voice. Where are you going? What firm? What's going on? Home, I said. I'm going home, son. I walked out before he could ask anything else. Marcus held the door open. I slid into the back seat, the leather soft and familiar. Through the tinted window, I could see David and Jessica on the sidewalk, David trying to follow us out, Jessica holding him back, both of them staring. Home, sir? Marcus asked, pulling smoothly into traffic. Home, I confirmed. We drove through downtown, past the office towers and busy streets, then up into West Vancouver. The houses grew larger, the lots more spacious. We turned onto a quiet street lined with old-growth cedars, their branches heavy with morning dew. The house appeared through the trees. 4,000 square feet of post and beam architecture, walls of glass overlooking the ocean. Linda and I had designed it together 30 years ago, when the kids were small and Vancouver real estate was merely expensive rather than astronomical. I'd kept it after she died, even when living there alone became too quiet, too full of memories. When David had suggested I move in with him and Jessica to save money, he'd said I'd agreed. It had seemed like a chance to be closer to my son, to not be alone. I'd locked up the house, told David I was renting it out. I hadn't mentioned it was rented to a very quiet tenant who happened to be a trust in my name. Marcus pulled into the circular driveway. Welcome back, sir. Thank you, Marcus. Take the rest of the day. I'll see you Monday morning. He nodded, helped carry my boxes inside, then left in his own car, parked discreetly in the garage. I stood in the foyer, breathing in the familiar scent of the house, cedar and ocean air. Linda's lavender sachets still tucked in closets. Everything as I'd left it, maintained by the housekeeping service that came twice a week. My phone buzzed. David. I let it ring. It buzzed again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. Dad, where are you? What's going on? Whose car was that? I'm home, David, safe and sound. Home where? Dad, you need to tell me what's happening. That car, that man. How did you afford that? I didn't afford it, son. The firm provides it. Transportation for partners. Silence on the line. Then, what firm? Chen and Associates. Well, that's what it was called when I founded it. These days, it's Mackenzie Holloway Chen. Has been for 23 years since we merged. I'm the Chen in the name, David, the founding partner. More silence. Longer this time. That's Jessica's firm, David said finally, his voice strange. Yes, I said. It is. You're a partner at Mackenzie Holloway? The senior partner, actually. I started that firm in 1987, when you were 2 years old. Immigration law initially. Then we expanded into corporate and commercial work. Your mother handled the finances while I built the practice. By the time we merged with Mackenzie Holloway in 2002, we had 40 lawyers and offices in Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary. Dad, that's Jessica works there. She talks about the founding partners. She's never mentioned you. I go by Robert Chen professionally. You've always called me Dad, so you wouldn't have connected it. And I semi-retired 5 years ago, after your mother died. I'm not in the office much anymore. Mostly board meetings, strategy sessions. But I'm still very much involved in major decisions. Like partnership decisions. I could hear David breathing on the other end, processing. Dad, why didn't you tell me? All these years, you never... I tried, David. When you were 22, about to finish your engineering degree at UBC, I offered you a position, not as a lawyer, but on the business development side. You said you wanted to make your own way, that you didn't want favors from your father. I remember, David said quietly, but I thought you worked in immigration law. I thought it was a small practice. I let you think that. You wanted to be independent, and I respected that. But I also wanted you to learn the value of building something yourself. So I stepped back. I lived modestly. I let you believe what you believed. The Honda Civic, David said. The modest clothes. Living with us. The Civic is convenient for short trips. The clothes are comfortable. And living with you was a chance to spend time with my son. Until it became clear that your wife saw me as a burden to be managed. Dad, I didn't know she was going to. Didn't you? I kept my voice gentle. You sat there, David. You let her speak for both of you. You couldn't even look at me. Silence again. Then, quietly, I'm sorry. I know you are, I said. We'll talk more, but not today. Today, I need to be alone with your mother's memory. In our home. Can I come see you? Soon, I said. But not yet. I ended the call. The rest of Sunday passed quietly. I unpacked Linda's photographs, setting them back in their familiar places. I sat in my study, looking out at the ocean, watching container ships move slowly across the horizon. Monday morning, Marcus picked me up at 8. I dressed in one of my good suits, canali, charcoal gray, Italian leather shoes. The watch Linda had given me for our 30th anniversary. Board meeting at 9:30, Marcus reminded me as we drove downtown. Miss Reeves wants to discuss the partnership committee's recommendations. Yes, I said. I'm very interested in those recommendations. Mackenzie Holloway Chen occupied 3 floors in one of Vancouver's premier office towers. The reception area on the 24th floor was all glass and steel, the firm's name in brushed metal letters behind the reception desk. Mr. Chen, the receptionist said, smiling. Good to see you. Miss Reeves is expecting you in the boardroom. Thank you, Stephanie. I took my time walking through the office. Several associates nodded respectfully. A few of the younger ones didn't recognize me, which was fine. I'd been mostly absent since Linda died, and the firm had grown. The boardroom was at the end of the hall, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Cole Harbor. Sarah Reeves, managing partner, stood as I entered. Robert. She came around the table to shake my hand. Good to have you back. We've missed your presence. Thank you, Sarah. The firm looks well. We're doing well? Up 12% from last year. Which brings us to today's discussion. Partnership recommendations, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. Yes. Sarah pulled out a tablet, swiping through files. We have 5 candidates up for consideration this year. 3 are straightforward, excellent track records, unanimous support from their departments. And the other 2? Sarah hesitated. One is Adam Richardson from our litigation group. Solid lawyer, but some concerns about client relationships. The partnership committee is split. And the second? Jessica Crawford. Corporate law. She's been with us 6 years. Good billable hours. Strong technical skills. Her mentor, Patricia Hayes, is pushing hard for her. But Patricia is retiring next year. Some of us wonder if Jessica's ready. She's ambitious, no question. But there are questions about judgment. She burned some bridges during the Henderson merger last year, and there have been complaints about her management style with junior associates. Several have requested transfers out of her files. I see. What does the committee recommend? Hold off for another year. Let her develop more maturity. And what does Jessica think her chances are? Sarah's expression was wry. She thinks it's guaranteed. According to Patricia, Jessica's already planning her new office. I nodded slowly. When is the partnership committee presenting their recommendations? Friday afternoon. Full board vote is scheduled for Monday. I'd like to see Jessica's file, I said. Complete review, all performance evaluations, client feedback, everything. Of course. Sarah made a note. May I ask why the special interest? Personal curiosity, I said. I've heard her name mentioned. I'd like to form my own opinion. The rest of the meeting proceeded normally. After it concluded, Sarah walked me back to the elevator. It's good to have you engaged again, Robert, she said. The firm needs your wisdom. I smiled. Sometimes wisdom is just experience with better marketing. Tuesday afternoon, I reviewed Jessica's file. Marcus had picked it up from Sarah's office. A thick folder that represented 6 years of work. The picture that emerged was complicated. Jessica was undeniably talented. Her legal work was thorough, her research impeccable. She billed long hours, brought in decent clients from her family connections. But the pattern in her evaluations was clear. Brilliant but difficult. Ambitious to the point of ruthlessness. Several notes about her treatment of support staff. One formal complaint from a junior associate about being publicly humiliated in a meeting. Client feedback ranged from glowing to concerned, with some noting her tendency to dismiss input. The most interesting document was from 3 years ago. A mediation between Jessica and another associate who'd accused her of taking credit for his work. The firm had settled it quietly, but the mediator's notes were revealing. Miss Crawford displays difficulty with collaborative work and tends to view colleagues as competitors rather than team members. Wednesday, David showed up at my door. How did you know where I live? I asked, though I suspected. Marcus gave me the address, David said. He said you wouldn't mind. I stepped back, letting him in. He stopped in the foyer, staring at the house. This is where I grew up, he said slowly. I remember this place. We moved when I was 9 or 10. You said you sold it. I said we moved. I corrected gently. I never said I sold it. David walked through the living room, running his hand along the mantel, looking at photographs. Here was one of him at 7, missing his front teeth. Another at his UBC graduation, Linda beaming beside him. You kept all of this, David said. All of Mom's things. Of course I did, I said. This was her home. It's still her home. David turned to me, his eyes red. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have asked more questions. Should have stood up for you. I let Jessica. You let Jessica speak for you because it was easier than disagreeing with her, I finished. I understand, David. Marriage is complicated. You wanted peace in your home. That's not an excuse. No, I agreed. It's not. We sat in the living room, the afternoon light slanting through the windows. The view stretched out before us, the ocean glittering. Jessica doesn't know yet, David said, about you being at the firm. She'll find out soon enough. She's been so confident about making partner this year. She's already planning how to redecorate her office. I know, I said. I've read her file. David's head snapped up. You're on the partnership committee? I'm the founding partner, David. I'm on every committee that matters. Oh, God. David put his head in his hands. She's going to lose her mind. What Jessica does with this information is her choice, I said. Just as it was her choice to treat me as a burden. As dead weight, I believe she said. David flinched. I heard that. I should have said something. Yes, I said. You should have. We sat in silence for a moment. Then David asked, quietly, What are you going to do? About what? About Jessica's partnership application. What do you think I should do? Dad, don't. Don't make me. I'm not making you do anything, I interrupted. I'm asking your opinion. What does your wife deserve, based on her professional merit and her character? David was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I don't know if she's ready. She works hard, but she's not always kind. Not to people she sees as beneath her. Beneath her, I repeated. Like your father was beneath her? Yes, David whispered. Then you have your answer. David left shortly after, looking smaller somehow, diminished. I felt sorry for him. He'd made bad choices, yes, but he was still my son. He'd learn from this, or he wouldn't. That was up to him. Friday afternoon, I attended the partnership committee presentation. The boardroom was full, all 12 board members present. Sarah Reeves led the discussion, going through each candidate. Adam Richardson, from litigation, was approved with minimal discussion. The concerns about his client relationships addressed with a mentorship plan. Then came Jessica Crawford. Patricia Hayes stood to present her case, passionate and persuasive. She detailed Jessica's accomplishments, her billable hours, her technical expertise. When she finished, Sarah opened the floor for discussion. I raised my hand. Robert, Sarah said, you have thoughts? I've reviewed Miss Crawford's file thoroughly, I said. There's no question she's technically proficient. However, I have significant concerns about her judgment and character. The room went very quiet. Patricia Hayes's face tightened. With respect, Robert, Patricia said carefully, you haven't been active in the firm for several years. You may not be familiar with Jessica's recent work. I'm familiar enough, I said. I've read every evaluation, every client feedback form, and I've had personal experience with Miss Crawford's character. Personal experience? Sarah leaned forward. Yes. I looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. Jessica Crawford is my daughter-in-law. For the past 18 months, I've lived with her and my son in their home. During that time, I've observed how she treats people she perceives as having no power or value. The room erupted in murmurs. Patricia looked shocked. You're David's father? She said. Jessica never mentioned. Jessica didn't know, I said. She knew I was her father-in-law, living in her home because my son suggested it after my wife died. What she didn't know was that I am the founding partner of this firm. She believed I was an elderly immigrant with a small law practice, someone who'd become a burden to my son, and she treated me accordingly. I let that sink in, then continued. 3 weeks ago, Jessica informed me that I needed to pay $4,200 per month in rent or leave. She called me deadweight. She told my son I was taking up space they could be using, that they were tired of subsidizing me. My son sat silently while she said these things. Robert, Sarah said slowly, I had no idea. Few people did. I've lived quietly since Linda died. But understand this, I've watched Jessica Crawford up close. I've seen how she treats people when she thinks there are no consequences. I've heard her speak about support staff, about junior associates, about anyone she views as beneath her station. And I can tell you that giving her partnership at this firm would be a mistake. Patricia's face was flushed. That's completely inappropriate. You're letting personal grievances influence a professional decision. Am I? I opened the file folder I'd brought, because here I have 3 complaints from support staff about Miss Crawford's treatment. Here's an evaluation noting her difficulty with collaboration. Here's a client who expressed concern about her dismissive attitude toward his questions. These aren't personal grievances, Patricia. They're patterns. Patterns I've witnessed firsthand. The board members were passing papers, reading, whispering to each other. I continued, partnership isn't just about billing hours and winning cases. It's about representing this firm's values. It's about how we treat people, all people, not just those who can advance our careers. Jessica Crawford may be a good lawyer, but she is not ready to be a partner in this firm. I sat back. Sarah looked at Patricia. Patricia, I think we need to defer this decision. The board needs time to review these concerns properly. This is vendetta, Patricia said, her voice shaking. Personal revenge. It's accountability, I corrected. And it's my responsibility as a founding partner to ensure we maintain our standards. The vote, when it came, was not even close. Jessica's partnership was deferred for at least 1 year, pending improved performance reviews and completion of a leadership development program. As the meeting broke up, Sarah approached me. That took courage, she said. Though I suspect there's more to this story. There usually is, I agreed. That evening, my phone exploded with messages. David called 6 times. I didn't answer. Finally, around 9, he sent a text. Dad, Jessica knows. She's destroyed. Please call me. I replied simply, we'll talk Monday. Saturday morning, Jessica herself appeared at my door. She looked terrible, her hair pulled back, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. I'd never seen her look so small. I didn't answer the bell. I watched through the security camera as she stood there, rang again, then finally sat down on the front step. She stayed there for 20 minutes before leaving. Sunday, David tried again. This time, I answered. Please, Dad. Please, can we talk? Jessica wants to apologize. She's devastated. I'm sure she is, I said. But I'm not ready for that conversation yet. Dad, she didn't know. If she'd known who you were, if she'd known I had power and money, she would have treated me differently. I understand. That's precisely the problem, David. She made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But does it have to cost her everything? I haven't cost her everything, I said. She still has her job, her salary, her career. She simply didn't get a promotion she thought she deserved. That's not everything, David. That's entitlement meeting reality. You're punishing her. I'm holding her accountable. There's a difference. Please, David said, and his voice broke. Please don't do this. She's my wife. I love her. Then you should have loved her enough to teach her basic human decency, I said, and immediately regretted the harshness. But it was said. David was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're right. I should have stood up to her about a lot of things, about how she talked about people, about how she treated you. I was weak, and I'm sorry. I know you are, I said, gentler now. David, I'm not trying to destroy your marriage, but I am trying to teach your wife something she should have learned long ago. You don't get to treat people as disposable just because they can't fight back. Will you at least see us? Talk to us? In time, I said, but not yet. I need you to sit with this for a while, both of you. 2 weeks passed. I went to the office occasionally, had coffee with Sarah, reviewed cases. Life moved forward. Then, one evening, there was a knock at my door. Not the doorbell, a knock. Tentative, uncertain. I checked the camera. Jessica stood there alone, wearing a simple dress, her hands clasped in front of her. She looked up at the camera. Please, she mouthed. Please. I opened the door. Jessica's eyes were red, swollen from crying. Thank you for opening the door, she said. Her voice was hoarse. Come in, I said, stepping back. She entered hesitantly, stopping in the foyer. The house seemed to overwhelm her. Would you like tea? I asked. I don't deserve tea, Jessica said. I don't deserve anything from you. We'll have tea anyway, I said. In the kitchen, I put the kettle on while Jessica sat at the counter, the same counter where Linda used to prepare her famous Vietnamese spring rolls, where David had done his homework while she cooked. Mr. Chen, Jessica started. Robert, I corrected. I've been your father-in-law for 4 years. I think we can use first names. Robert. She swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what I said, for how I treated you, for... For everything. Why? I asked, pouring hot water into cups. Why are you sorry? Because I was cruel to you. Because I judged you without knowing anything about you. Because I'm a terrible person. Are you terrible? Or did you just do terrible things? Jessica looked up at me, confused. There's a difference, I said, sitting down across from her. A terrible person can't change, can't learn, can't grow. Someone who did terrible things, but wants to do better, that's something else. I want to do better, Jessica whispered. I want to be better. Why? I asked again. Because you got caught? Because it cost you something? Or because you genuinely understand that what you did was wrong? Jessica was quiet for a long time, staring into her tea. Finally, she said, all of those things. I'm ashamed that I got caught. Yes, I'm devastated about the partnership. But Robert, I've been thinking about every word I said to you, every look I gave you, and I'm sick with shame. You didn't deserve that. No one deserves that. No, I agreed. They don't. I grew up with money, Jessica continued. My parents, my grandparents, we've always had it. And I think somewhere along the way, I started to believe that people without money, people who weren't successful in obvious ways, they were less than me. And that's horrible. That's a horrible way to be. Yes, I said. It is. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make it right with you. You start, I said, by understanding that you can't fix it immediately. You hurt my son by making him choose between loyalty to me and keeping peace with you. You hurt me. Not just with your words, but with your complete dismissal of my worth as a human being. Those hurts don't heal because you say sorry, even if you mean it. Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. But, I continued, if you're serious about changing, then you start by changing how you treat everyone, not just people you know have power. The receptionist at the firm, the paralegals, the junior associates, the server at your favorite restaurant. You treat them all with the same respect you give to senior partners and wealthy clients. I will, Jessica said. I promise I will. We'll see, I said. Because I'll be watching, not to catch you failing, but to see if you grow. What about David? Jessica asked quietly. He's been so quiet at home. He barely speaks to me. I think I broke something between us. You did, I confirmed. You made him complicit in cruelty. That's hard for a good man to live with. How do I fix that? You can't, I said. Only he can decide if he forgives you, and if he can still love the person you were. But you can give him a reason to believe you're becoming someone better. Jessica left shortly after, smaller somehow, more human. I didn't know if she'd actually change. People rarely did, not fundamentally. But sometimes a hard enough lesson could crack the shell that people built around themselves. The following week, David came by. He brought coffee, expensive lattes from our old favorite cafe on Commercial Drive, the place we used to go on Saturday mornings when he was a teenager. We sat on the deck, looking out at the water. It was one of those rare November days, clear and cold and beautiful. I'm thinking about separation, David said quietly. I waited, not because I don't love Jessica, but because I don't like who I became with her. I let her turn me into someone who sits quietly while his father is disrespected. That's not who I want to be. Marriage is complicated, I said. Only you can know if it's worth saving. Do you think it is? I think Jessica is capable of change, I said carefully. I think she was genuinely shocked by herself when she realized what she'd done. But David, the question isn't whether she can change. It's whether you can forgive her and still respect yourself. David nodded slowly. When I was a kid, he said, Mom used to tell me stories about when you first came to Canada, how hard you worked, how you went to law school at night while working during the day, how you built your practice from nothing. Your mother embellished, I said. It wasn't quite from nothing, but it was hard, and you never made me feel like I had to prove anything to you. You just wanted me to be happy, to be kind. I wanted you to be yourself, I said, and you are. You're a good person, David. You just forgot for a while. We sat in silence, drinking our coffee, watching seabirds wheel over the water. Eventually, David said, I talked to Jessica about coming to see you together. She wants to try to make things right. What do you want? I asked. I want my father back, David said, and his voice cracked. I want to have Sunday dinners here again, like we used to when Mom was alive. I want to not feel sick every time I think about how I let you down. You didn't let me down, David. You disappointed me. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Letting me down would mean you failed despite trying your best. Disappointing me means you didn't try at all. But disappointment can be fixed. How? By doing better going forward, I said. It's that simple and that hard. December came, and with it, the rainy season in full force. I went back to the office more regularly, taking meetings, reviewing cases. Jessica and I maintained professional courtesy when we passed in the hallways. She was working with a leadership coach, I'd heard, attending workshops on management and interpersonal skills. Sarah pulled me aside one afternoon. Whatever you did, it's working. Jessica's been a different person. Her team actually seems to like her now. Early days, I cautioned, people can perform change for a while before reverting. Cynic, Sarah said, but she was smiling. Realist, I corrected. Christmas came. David invited me for dinner. Jessica had volunteered to work at a homeless shelter Christmas morning, something she'd apparently never done before. I spent Christmas Eve alone in the house, looking through old photos of Linda, missing her with an ache that hadn't diminished with time. Christmas Day, I went to David and Jessica's. The condo felt different somehow, quieter, more thoughtful. Jessica answered the door. Welcome, Robert, she said. No, not said, asked. As if my welcome wasn't guaranteed. Thank you for inviting me, I replied. Dinner was simple, roast chicken and vegetables. We ate mostly in silence, the weight of everything unsaid hanging over the table. Finally, Jessica spoke. I've been thinking about what you said, about treating everyone with respect, not just people with power. And? I asked, and I realized I don't know how. She looked up at me, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen her. I grew up with money, with privilege, and no one ever taught me that other people's dignity mattered as much as mine. That sounds awful to say out loud, but it's true. At least you're recognizing it, I said. I want to do better. I'm trying to do better. But I don't know if better will ever be good enough. Good enough for what? For you to forgive me. For David to trust me again. For me to deserve the life I have. I set down my fork, looked at her directly. Jessica, forgiveness isn't something you earn like a promotion. It's something that happens when the person who was hurt decides they're tired of carrying the weight of anger. I'm not there yet. I may never be there completely. But I can see you're trying, and that matters. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. We finished dinner, and afterward, David and I did dishes while Jessica made coffee. It felt almost normal, almost like family. As I was leaving, Jessica stopped me at the door. Robert, she said, I never asked you why you kept working after you'd made so much money, why you didn't just retire and enjoy life. Because the work mattered, I said. Because helping people navigate systems that were designed to exclude them, that gave me purpose. Money was never the point. The point was using whatever power I had to help others find their own. Jessica nodded slowly. I think I'm finally starting to understand that. I hope so, I said. Because it's the only thing that makes any of this worthwhile. I drove home through the rain, the city lights reflecting off wet streets. Linda would have liked how this turned out, I thought. She'd always believed in second chances, in the possibility of people growing beyond their worst selves. I wasn't sure I believed it as completely as she had, but I was willing to wait and see. The new year came, bringing with it the usual resolutions and fresh starts. I continued going to the office, continued watching Jessica from a distance. She seemed genuinely changed, more humble, more thoughtful. Whether it would last, only time would tell. In February, Sarah approached me about formally stepping back from the board. You've earned your rest, Robert, she said. You've built something remarkable here. Let the next generation carry it forward. I'm considering it, I said. But not quite yet. Because of Jessica? Partly, I admitted. I want to see how she continues to develop. And partly because this firm was Linda's dream as much as mine. I'm not ready to let go completely. Sarah nodded, understanding. Linda would be proud of what you've built. What you've both built. I hope that was true. March brought an unexpected development. David stopped by on a Saturday afternoon. We're moving, he said. Jessica got an offer from a firm in Toronto. Smaller practice, less prestige, but a fresh start. She thinks it might be good for us. What do you think? I asked. I think it's brave, David said. She's giving up her career trajectory here, the partnership track she worked so hard for, to start over. That takes courage. Or it's running away, I suggested. Maybe it's both, David acknowledged. But Dad, I think we need it. We need space from the mistakes we made here. A chance to rebuild. I understood. Sometimes geography could provide the distance needed for real change. When do you leave? End of April. Jessica's already started with the new firm remotely. I'm transferring to our Toronto office. You'll be closer to your mother's family, I said. Her sister will be happy. Yeah, David smiled slightly. Aunt May's already planning to mother us aggressively. We sat quietly for a moment. Then David said, I'm going to miss you, Dad. Vancouver to Toronto isn't that far, I said. I'll visit, and you'll come back. It won't be the same. No, I agreed. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Change can be growth. The last Sunday before they left, they came for dinner at the house. I cooked Linda's recipes that David had grown up with, the Vietnamese dishes that connected us to our heritage. Jessica was quieter than usual, thoughtful. As we ate, she finally spoke. Robert, I want you to know that what happened here, what I did to you, it changed me. Not just because of the consequences, but because it showed me who I'd become. Someone I'm ashamed of. The question is who you're becoming now, I said. Someone better, I hope. Someone who remembers that respect and kindness aren't things you ration based on what you can get back. I raised my glass. To second chances, I said. To second chances, they echoed. After dinner, David and I stood on the deck while Jessica did the dishes. Insisted on it, despite my protests. Dad, David said, thank you. For what? For not giving up on us. On me. You could have cut me off completely, and no one would have blamed you. You're my son, I said simply. That doesn't change, no matter how disappointed I am in choices you've made. I'll do better, David promised. I'll be the man Mom raised me to be. You will, I said, because you want to be, and that's the first step. They left for Toronto on a rainy April morning. I didn't go to see them off. Some goodbyes were better done in small doses, over time, rather than in one dramatic moment. The house felt quiet after they left, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Not empty, but peaceful, room to breathe. I continued my work at the firm, mentoring younger lawyers, attending board meetings, staying engaged. Jessica's position was eventually filled by another candidate, someone who'd been passed over the previous year. He was quieter than Jessica, less flashy, but solid, patient, kind to the staff. In June, David called. Dad, I have news. Good news, I hope. Jessica made a pro bono case, a refugee family fighting deportation. She won. The lawyer she was working against said he'd never seen someone fight so hard for clients who couldn't pay. I felt something warm in my chest, something that might have been pride. That's good work, I said. She told me it reminded her of why she became a lawyer in the first place, before it all became about prestige and money. Before she became the person who would call her father-in-law dead weight, I thought, but didn't say. Some things didn't need to be spoken again. July brought my birthday. David and Jessica flew back for the weekend. We had dinner at the house, and this time, the silences were comfortable, the conversation genuine. As they were leaving, Jessica stopped, turned back. Robert, she said, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I'm sorry for the person I was. I'm working every day to be different, to be better. I know you are, I said. And I appreciate it. Does that mean you forgive me? I looked at her, this woman who'd once dismissed me as worthless, who demanded I pay rent or leave the home I'd helped them buy. I saw the shame in her eyes, the genuine remorse. But I also saw something else. Humility. The willingness to be wrong, to change, to grow. I'm getting there, I said finally. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. But yes, I'm getting there. Jessica nodded, tears in her eyes. Thank you, That's more than I deserve. Probably, I agreed, and saw David hide a smile. But then, grace usually is. They left, back to Toronto, back to their new life. I stood in the doorway of the house, Linda's house, our house, watching their car disappear down the street. Inside, I walked through the rooms, touching familiar objects. Linda's favorite chair, the table we'd bought at an estate sale 30 years ago, the bookshelf filled with her beloved novels. You'd be proud of him, I told her memory. He's finding his way. They both are. The house, as always, didn't answer, but I felt her presence there, in the afternoon light, in the scent of lavender that still lingered in closets, in the weight of love that accumulated over decades. I'd built a life here, built a family, built a career that mattered. I'd made mistakes, certainly. Perhaps I should have told David the truth about my success earlier, should have been more present, more open. But I'd also taught him, in the end, the lessons that mattered most. Respect wasn't transactional. Dignity wasn't negotiable. And family, real family, was built not on what you could provide, but on who you were willing to become for each other. Outside, the Vancouver rain returned, soft and persistent. I made tea, settled into my chair, picked up one of Linda's books. Tomorrow I'd go to the office, continue my work, continue building the legacy we'd started together. But tonight, I sat in our home, in the life we'd built, and felt grateful. For second chances, for growth, for the long, difficult journey from hurt to healing. The rain pattered against the windows. I opened the book, began to read, and smiled.